Good evening. It's Friday, August 7th, 6:24 p.m. and Warometers has just reset it. We'll take a look at the latest numbers and reports that I put together. So today, the world reported 283,000 new cases. Number one with USA with 63,000. India second, 61,000. Brazil third, 49,000. Colombia fourth, 9,000. Fourth tends to rotate between like Colombia, there's Peru, South Africa, Mexico. The top deaths today was USA with 1,290 new deaths in the USA. Brazil second, 1,058. India third, 940. Mexico fourth, 819. So we got four countries approaching 1,000 deaths a day, and these numbers are severely underreported. So who knows what's going on? We'll go back. We'll go to USA state by state. USA has passed 5 million cases. Probably gonna be hearing that on the news pretty soon, unless you already have. Number one, California with almost 8,000 new cases. Second, Florida, 7,600. Texas, third, 7,600. What a coincidence. Georgia, fourth, 4,109. In terms of deaths, Texas, number one, 228. California, second, 188. Florida, third, 180. And Georgia, fourth, with 91. I do want to check something out real quick within Texas. Texas is approaching 500,000 cases. All right. Also, they have a bad county. I didn't know Texas did that. What's the worst county in Texas? Harris? It's Harris County. All right, so now for the latest. I did put some stuff together that I found. I'm sure you guys will find it interesting. Now, Pastebin has been kind of acting up as of the past couple of minutes. I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully it'll load, because it loaded before. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple of things today. CG report number 72. Corona-chan pulls your hair out edition. Hair loss may be long-term side effect of SARS-2. There's been a lot of reports about this happening lately. A SARS-2 survivor who spent weeks fighting for life in hospital has warned hair loss could be a potential unknown side effect, as a clinic also revealed a rising number of former SARS-2 patients are losing their hair. Grace Dudley, 30, from Ramford, Essex, spent weeks waking up to huge clumps of hair in her pillow, a month after spending a fortnight in hospital with a potentially deadly virus. The makeup artist who lost her dad to SARS-2 2 days after she left the hospital is not alone in her hair loss struggle, with dozens of SARS-2 survivors sharing pictures of their scalps on online survivor communities on social media. She told Metro.co.uk, a lot of people are losing their hair and not understanding why it's happening. Some people don't get it much, but for me, it was a matter of it's all going to go. Now, do keep in mind that they said that ACE2 receptors are everywhere, including concerning hair, and because the virus just goes everywhere to the body, just invading ACE2 receptors, that could be one reason why. To partly explain, Grace's claims have also been supported by specialists at a leading London clinic who say they have noticed a surge of telogen effluvium (TE), a form of temporary hair loss that normally occurs after stress, a shock, or a traumatic event among former patients. It comes as specialists at the Belgravia Center in London reveal that nearly 2/3, 64%, of male patients and over a third of females, 38%, have been diagnosed with TE after experiencing virus symptoms, suggesting there is a connection between SARS-2 and hair loss 8 to 16 weeks after sickness hits. Experts say it is difficult to decipher a single cause for the condition, with other potential causes including medication, dietary deficiencies, other illness, severe stress, pregnancy, or bereavement. I mean, it's starting to do things that cancer does. That's very frightening. CBG report number 73, Moderna and Oxford trials. Downplaying the side effects. If the vaccine is doing well, why is there a lack of transparency on side effects? After the first trial began, there was little mention of the unusual use of acetaminophen injections. Newspapers only said the vaccine had proven safe with rhesus monkeys. But what about humans? And why use acetaminophen? In the 10,000 people UK study, you can't participate if you have an allergy or condition complicated by acetaminophen. However, South Africa's trials didn't mention the drug. Huh. Journalists have pressed that the first people to get vaccines are carefully picked to be the least likely to have a bad reaction. Obviously, vaccines have side effects, but why is there an obvious attempt to downplay what is actually happening in the trials? It was shown around a third of people vaccinated with the SARS-2 vaccine without acetaminophen experienced moderate or severe chills, fatigue, headache, malaise, and or feverishness. 10% had a fever of at least 100.4 degrees, and just over a quarter developed moderate or severe muscle aches. That's a lot in a young and healthy group of people, and the acetaminophen didn't help much for most of these problems. The paper's anchor designated the vaccine as acceptable and tolerated. Another red flag is the placebo group using a meningococcal vaccine. Side effects from it could overshadow the new vaccines. Though the vaccines are said to be safe as of May, last week's paper shows the full results. By the time they had 2 doses, everyone is showing headaches, chills, or fatigue, and for at least 80%, this could have been enough to interfere with their normal activities. A participant who had a severe reaction to the particularly high dose has talked in detail about how bad it was. Even more worrying is that AstraZeneca announced they cannot be held liable in the future for the vaccine's side effects. Now, we need to make sure that this vaccine is safe, and they're rushing it so much. And if they were more, they're obviously hiding a lot of the info from the trials. It's pretty obvious. So that's very concerning, because we need to make sure that it's safe. There's a lot of talk that, well, right now the vaccine's hitting phase 3, and phase 3 can take years. So are they willing to take whatever it takes to release a safe vaccine, or will they rush it and potentially cause more bad than good? We shall see. CG report number 74. Hundreds of types of face masks withdrawn in Australia amid safety fears. Guardian Australia was sent images from nurses working in Victorian and South Wales hospitals of masks and surgical gowns that they were supplied with carrying labels in Chinese characters that stated single-use protective masks, not for medical use, and disposable, not for medical use, isolation gown. A spokeswoman for the NSW Department of Health says that in July, the department discovered a small set of personal protective equipment gowns were labeled as not for medical use. Each local health district was contacted and asked to remove the gowns while their suitability was checked. Jim Taylor is the founder of GHW, which supplies and imports PPE such as masks and gowns. She said she had been in contact with a number of nurses working in hospital wards with SARS-2 patients. They tell me they are not being given the correct PPE. The masks are not even hospital grade or fluid resistant, and neither are the gowns, she said. Nurses are scared to speak out and are concerned about the ramifications of being a whistleblower. They are not allowed to provide their own PPE. A friend who works in a major hospital tells me she is not allowed to wear a mask or face shield, and yet patients lean across the counter to speak to her. There are no Perspex screens in place. A senior nurse who is part of a chat group of more than 200 nurses treating SARS-2 patients said that in the past fortnight, large deliveries of masks had been made to hospitals, but many of those had unclear labeling and were not appropriate for use in hospitals. Some hospitals were telling some nurses they were low risk, even if they were swabbing potentially positive SARS-2 patients. More than 1,100 Victorian healthcare workers have contracted SARS-2 overall. Where are the procuring masks from? Why aren't they meeting standards? Well, isn't it obvious? They're Chinese. The Chinese Communist Party is sending these. You can tell, obviously, they have Chinese characters. So I'm telling you, the Chinese Communist Party has allowed this to spread throughout the world. They must be held accountable. They must be taken down. Now we're gonna do something that I went and researched. We're gonna go deep into the science of SARS-2. So bear with me on this one. This report is gonna go into the second report, which is 2 parts. CG report number 71, the peer review. June 5th, The Lancet makes one of the biggest retractions in modern history on HDQ. How? Because of the peer review, the formal process of reviewing scientific work before it is accepted for publication is not designed to detect anomalous data. It makes no difference if the anomalies are due to inaccuracies, miscalculations, or outright fraud. This is not what peer review is for. While it's known for validating papers, it's not that easy. Peer review is a slow and careful evaluation of papers by appropriate experts. It involves rounds of revisions that removes errors, straightens analysis, and improves manuscripts. At its worst, it is merely window dressing that gives the unwarranted appearance of authority, a cursory process which confers no real value, enforces orthodoxy, and overlooks both obvious and analytical problems and outright fraud entirely. The peer review is struggling, and this retraction exposes this. The majority of peer-reviewed articles are never checked for any form of analytical consistency, nor can they be. Journals do not require manuscripts to have accompanying data or analytical code, and often will not help you obtain them from authors if you wish to see them. If you locate a problem in a published paper and bring it to either of these parties, often the response is silence. It's not a lack of caring. Many are too caught up trying to keep their scientific careers afloat. Papers like this can determine how people live or die tomorrow. They affect what drugs are recommended, what treatments are available, and how we get them sooner. Problems with the peer review include it is unrewarded, unpaid work. Some senior scientists are notorious for rarely or never being involved in peer reviews, being more concerned with their own research instead. Peer review clearly doesn't always mean a paper is legitimate. This needs to be understood and critically thought upon during the SARS-2 pandemic. Now, I'd always heard peer review, but I never really knew what it was till I dug into this old article about the Lancet that kind of goes into what is like, what the world of peer review is like. All right, so last thing. CG report number 75. Huge flaws found in study of SARS-2 studies. The Chinese Communist Party controls the science, part 1 of 2. How has the scientific world reacted to this pandemic? This pandemic has brought to fore the gaping incoherence in opinions expressed by agencies the world over. Government bodies, non-government institutions, pharmaceutical industry, researchers have all made their sounds, but without much unison. By one estimate, the SARS-2 literature published since January has reached more than 23,000 papers and is doubling every 20 days, among the biggest explosions of scientific literature ever. Researchers seem to write articles endlessly, often repeating and restating what is already written. This also raises questions on the quality of data and the authenticity of the results. The need of the hour is to print and publish only credible, proven information in respective platforms, including online and printed journals. The flooding of irrelevant junk needs to be stopped. Median numbers of publications was 1. A total of 41,083 authors were... A total of 41,083 authors were identified with 1 publication each. 3,847 authors with 2 publications. 1,583 with 3 to 10 publications, and 121 authors with 11 to 71 publications. A total of 8 authors have more than 50 publications. Top 20 authors representing 935 articles are of Chinese descent. Now, Dr. Yan warned us in the war room that China quickly took control of the scientific world way back in the beginning of the pandemic to influence and lie about what the virus does. So this does not surprise me whatsoever. The use of pseudoscientific facts and retractions among these papers, such as the Lancet incident that I explained earlier, marks a grim testimony to the chinks in the peer review process and robustness of audits. Now, I kind of questioned that sentence, but apparently that the chinks is an actual word. So he wasn't using it the way I thought he was using it. Peer review seems to be overwhelmed by a huge rush for publications. Even more concerning is that the authors of these articles are well-established researchers. So the point I'm making is that just because something's peer reviewed doesn't mean it's absolute fact, as we've seen in these contradictions. And also, just because something is not peer reviewed does not mean that it's illegitimate. Again, it comes down to analyzing, and just thinking and analyzing. So, part 2. Making use of the prevailing situation, some new predator journals have also popped up, usually paid journals, to present these pseudoscientific facts. Our analysis also shows that authors from People's Republic of China, PRC, are the leading contributors in the SARS-2 literature. First 20 leading authors in PubMed, contributing an average of approximately 50 articles each, are of Chinese origin. A total of 87 of the controlled trials in PubMed has originated from PRC. 90% investigators in controlled trials are of Chinese descent. The other alarming tendency among the journals and reviewers are very short review time, which is decreasing at a rate of negative 0.21 days with every passing day. Articles are often accepted in the same day or within a week. In PubMed's RCT section, we found 2 randomized controlled trials that were accepted in one day. Our analysis of the dynamics of publications as a function of days, journals, authors, and 3 different types of databases has undoubtedly proved the skewed bias towards excessive, unwarranted publishing on the SARS-2 pandemic. And the Chinese Communist Party is behind this. They are the main criminals behind this. Though the disease has been declared as a global pandemic, it does not warrant unwanted literature piling up continuously. Research groups, publishing houses, journals, reviewers, and all associates need to realize that the race for publications related to SARS-2 needs to be pragmatic, not a blind one. Publishing articles based on scientifically unimportant, pseudoscientific, fabricated, and unreliable and harmful facts just to increase the number of publications and citations is actually harmful to society and disservice to the scientific community. So we know for sure that the CCP is behind this. They have straight up reported fake information on the virus, as Dr. Yan revealed, and she is soon to publish an article that I am very much looking forward to. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.